Welcome to IDA's video channel. In this video, I'll show you how to import services from a shapefile. Before I do that, it is a good practice to import services to another drawing and then reference them into your design drawing because the services might be quite a big and they can make your drawing quite slow. And the other important thing is that you might get a shapefiles for the entire area and it might contain quite a few hundred parts and structures, and that might make your Civil 3D very slow. So I always suggest pre-process your shapefile. Let's say you can use a QGIS, which is a freeware software for shapefile editing, and import or process the data and make sure that only parts that are crossing your design are imported. Otherwise, it might make your Civil 3D drawing very slow, and that's not very nice. So if you want to import services from a shapefile, go to ribbon IDAS, import network, import shapefile. That opens a new window where at the top left corner you can go and browse for the shapefile. I will select stormwater manholes and then I will select the paths, stormwater paths, and I go to open. If you import the objects, they will appear in a map in this window. And you can go to tables where the tables shows the properties, which are attributes that are imported. And this is very practical because you can quickly preview which properties you want to use, let's say for the invert or material and so on. For example, here there is a diameter, stormwater diameter. If I scroll more to the right hand side, there is an invert here with underscore invert. And then let me scroll more down. So there are some other properties. You can do the same for the paths. By the way, if you're not sure what the command does, there are those question marks where you can hover the mouse and it shows you the tooltip so you can read a bit more about the specific function, what it does and how it works. And in this case, you see load all structures data because only first 100 rows are displayed here to make the performance quite decent. But if you want to load everything, you can. Then I go to pipe table. Let me scroll to the right hand side again. And you can see some of the properties. For example, if I scroll more to the right hand side, like here, you can see that there is an invert and invert 0, 0. Invert 0, 0 is higher than the invert. So it seems this is a start invert, this is an end invert. Not all the paths do have information. Those paths have a 0 elevation, so that might also be a problem. So this is not a great shapefile, but that's what you get sometimes, that not all the information are here. So you're trying to recreate the services, but you have no information or enough information. But at least we get a geometry. And when it comes to vertical adjustments, we can do it manually later on, or we can just use the values that are there. Then at the bottom, you can specify whether you want to create a new network or whether you want to use existing network. I will create new network and I will call it stormwater. Then under the part list, I want to use a stormwater part list. There is also an option to import attributes as a property set. We don't need it for this example because I just want to see the services in a long section and make sure that I'm not interfering with them. And if there is no elevation in the shapefile, it will use a default elevation -999. So you can clearly see in 3D view if any entities do not have a correct elevation, you can see those are the entities. Or if you don't want to use such a high value, you can go, let's say, to 0. But keep in mind that some services can be at a 0 elevation, because if you are close to the sea levels, there might be those entities at a 0 elevation. Some shapefiles do contain that elevation, and if they do, you can use it if you wish to. This shapefile doesn't have it. Then under the rim elevation, I need to specify what I want to use for the rim elevation. So I'm going to rim elevation, and there was a stormwater cover L. So let me go there. L is a lid probably. Then I go to some elevation. So I'm going to use stormwater underscore invert. Let me go there. There are quite a few, but I checked here that there's an invert with underscore and invert 0, 0. Invert with underscore contains some values. There is also an option to log the structures if they have a valid elevations. Those logs will be visible in a pipe manager. They're not visible in Civil 3D. And there's also an option that you don't want to lock the objects which do have a specific elevation. but I'm not going to use that option for now. And then I'll go to specify the diameter. So I go to stormwater diameter. Let me come in here and I will group structures for now. There's of course another grouping options. You can specify, let's say, the material or some other details. I think all the structures did have the same material, but if I want to, I can double check that. So let me go and see if there's a material. There's a material. I believe this is the one. Let me process, and it seems like it didn't bring anything. So maybe material doesn't contain any material. But I'm happy what I have here, and I need to assign the correct family. I will first start with a 600. So let me go to Humes, manhole closed, unflanched, and there is a 600. I can choose whether I want unflanched with a lid 100 millimeters or 75. I will use this one. And then I can also specify the base. I click apply. And then for the 1500, I will use Humes, manhole, eccentric, hole, flanged, for example. I'm not sure whether it is eccentric or centric. There's no information in a shapefile, but that's what I decided to use for now. But of course, you can use any other suitable family. Luckily, those structures, I believe, are not interfering with my pipeline, so the pipes are more important. Then when it comes to start invert elevation, by the way, if I come in here to plan, if I highlight the group, you can see they are highlighted in plan, as you can see, as I select them, which is quite nice. And I'm going to pipes. Again, in a table, I can check which values are suitable for the invert elevations and all that. And I checked that beforehand, and it was SW invert 0, 0. That seems to be a start invert, and then I have a SW underscore invert underscore, so that one, which seems to be the end elevation. There is also an option to use a structure invert as pipe invert. If I hover the mouse here, that will override the pipe start and end invert field, and there's a value from the geometry. I don't want that for now. There's also an option to log the pipes if needed, and not to log the pipes if they do have a specific elevation. Then I go to create structures. I don't want structures. So if there are no structures at the pipe start or end, I don't need to create any structures. As I mentioned, they are not interfering with my pipeline. And then I go, or they might be at the beginning, but I don't think that's the case. If I zoom in here, it's not that clear, but no, definitely not. You see all the manholes are away from the road, so there is no problem. Let me go to diameter, and I will use a SW diameter. Let me go there. Sorry, I didn't click the correct one. Diameter 0, 0. And then I will use a SW material, and I think material is the correct one. Let me group it. All of them are concrete, and the sizes, let me select the correct sizes. So I will use a rocklar, rubbering, joint, concrete. Let me see if this class contains all the sizes. So 225. I can't see it. I can only see 335. 225. This one contains 225. Again, I'm just assuming it might be this one. It might not be this one. But if I'm close enough, I believe that should work. And then 1500. This is not sorted numerically, but alphabetically. And this one is a 450, so let me select it. So I specified that. By the way, you can highlight each and every pipe here in plan so you can clearly see. Great, so I did specify all the details, and I can click OK to create those objects in Civil 3D drawing. By the way, if I didn't specify the coordinate system in Civil 3D, there would be an option, or it would offer me that it will be converted to the target coordinate system. So I'm going to click OK now. And in a plan, it will create those new objects. I can display them in 3D view. Let me do that actually. I can probably display them directly in this view. It doesn't look that bad, but I will project them to longitudinal section to see whether they have correct elevation. So what I need to do, I need to select at least one pipe in plan, and then I go to draw parts in profile, and I select the profile view, and here it is. It doesn't look right, but for now this is fine. I will select Profile View and I go to Profile View Properties again. And then I can go to pipe networks. So here is the pipe network. I can display show only crossing pipes. And only those pipes are crossing, and I can select them and tick draw them. But when I draw them, they will be projected. As you can see, they are projected to Profile View, but I want to display the section. So I need to go back to Profile View Properties. Then again, I will show only the crossing pipes. I will select all of them. And then I go to Override, and I will use a stormwater section style for long section. Okay. And now it shows those section styles. I will add the labels because it will be easier to find those objects. So let me go to pipe, add pipe network labels, add pipe network labels. And if you want to use a ribbon, you can go to ribbon annotate labels, pipe network, add pipe network labels. Then for entire network in a profile, I don't want a pipe label, I don't want structures label, but I want crossing pipe label. And I can display network name invert diameter. This is I believe outer diameter. Then I click add and I select any pipe in a profile view. And if I click close, these are the pipes. And you can clearly see the levels do not look right. So there's a zero elevation here because structures did have a zero elevation or pipes did have a zero elevation. And that doesn't look right at all. So I need to do something about it. When it comes to this one, this is quite deep. I'm not sure if I can trust it. And this one looks realistic. So this one I'm not sure about. Now, what can I do with those others? Unfortunately, the only option is that I can move them, let's say, below surface. If it was a gas pipeline or if it was a, let's say, electrical line, low voltage or high voltage, let's say if it is 0.8 or 0.6 meters below ground, then you can move the entire network. With a stormwater network or sewer network, it is more difficult because you have no idea how deep the pipe is because it can be anything, let's say, between minimum cover and the maximum cover. But in this case, I will assume, and I know it's not right, but I will assume that all of them are, let's say, covered or 1.4. So I'm going to use a command adjust inverse. Then under the parts, I will use a select parts. And then I will select those parts in a profile view. It says for selected. I specify which surface I want to use. I want to adjust pipe and the amount is 1.4 cover below surface. I'm not going to adjust any structure, so I keep it unticked. And then I click OK. I might get a message about the disconnected pipes and all of that. I click OK. And here it is. So it is now moved to that elevation. But again, keep in mind, it might not be correct. And again, keep in mind that the cover is at the start and end. So there might be places where it might be deeper, like this one. But if I did a longitudinal section through this pipe, the start and end would be 1.4. But along pipeline, it can appear deeper. So this is how to project the services to the longitudinal section. But if you imported more pipes and structures, let's say somewhere here, you can always delete them. You don't need to keep them in your drawing because it might make your drawing quite slow. So the less objects you have in your drawing, the better for you. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you can also use a data shortcuts for your services to make your design file as light as possible.